Yo, dudes, the Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could, join it or something.
Hey everyone, Lucimus Prime here, so it's time for the next episode of my series of Old is Better Than New. And in today's video, I thought I'd cover this time an example of a sci-fi horror franchise where, in my opinion, the old film's better than the new. And I'm talking mainly about two films why I'd say the old is better than the new. Because these two films, in my opinion, are untoppable compared to what came after them. And sadly, in a bad way too, because what came after these two films, in my opinion, is a jolt to a franchise. And this franchise, what I would personally say old is better than new for movies, is none other than the franchise of Alien. So, now you guys are going to be asking me, of course, what are my thoughts on, of course, the franchise. So, now, I absolutely, of course, love the first two films. The first film, in my opinion, is an example of a horror movie masterpiece. And it's definitely, in my opinion, one of the films which is actually good by the director, Sir Ridley Scott. Because, unfortunately, he's a director who I've lost trust for, because, personally, I think with his recent films, he really has lost his touch. But I would however argue that his first film of his franchise, Alien, is good, in my opinion. I think it's a horror movie masterpiece. And it gave us one of the greatest protagonists in cinematic history, being Ellen Ripley, who is easily my favourite role of Sigourney Weaver, who's one of her actresses of all time. And I definitely really loved her in this film. She's an amazing character, fantastic in every way. And she's very likeable, well-developed, and brilliantly written, in my opinion, in this film. And then, after that, of course, after this masterpiece of a horror film, we got the sequel, Aliens, which is not only my favourite in the franchise, but is also, for me, one of the greatest sequels in cinematic history. And it's also my second favourite film by the director, James Cameron, who is also, unfortunately, another director I've lost trust for, and also lost respect for recently as well. And you'll probably know why if you see my video in this series where I say his old ones better than new ones, for James Cameron, that is. But I absolutely love Aliens. It's also an example of a film where it changes from a horror film to an action film. And in my opinion, it's executed brilliantly. Another example of this is probably Terminator 2, because the first one of that franchise was pretty much a horror film. And the sequel, in my opinion, is the greatest action movie ever made. And this film, Aliens, is also, in my opinion, one of the best action films ever made. And it made Ripley into an absolute badass. I really miss the days of an absolutely badass character who's so well written, in my opinion. Especially when it comes as well to characters who are similar to Ripley as well. Because Ripley, in my opinion, is a character that, that filmmakers need to really look up to as, an example of a well-written character, in my opinion. Because she's a brilliant, fantastic character. And I must also, as well, praise, as well, the visual effects and practical effects department for the first two films. I think they help the first two films be so timeless in every way. Because when we watch the first two films, they don't get old at all. And I also like to pretend, of course, that Aliens is only a duology of two movies with no more, no less. And you'll know why on my video on why I say Aliens do not need sequels. So yeah, I absolutely adore the first two films. However, unfortunately though, I think since Aliens, the franchise of Alien really has hit hard times. And it really breaks my heart to say that. Because in 1992, which was 6 years after Aliens, we unfortunately got what is probably the absolute worst of a franchise for me. And it's not just my least favourite franchise, but probably one of the worst sequels of all time. And that's none other than the absolute trash, Alien 3. Now, this film, in my opinion, completely falls so flat compared to the first two films. And it's also introduces what is probably, for me, the worst cliche of all time, in which a beloved or fan favourite character is killed off at the start of a sequel, or a reboot, or a follow-up, or whatever. You get the point. And in this case, it's a character's being Hicks and Newt, who I absolutely loved in Aliens. They were great characters alongside Ripley, and I despised that they got wasted in this film. This film is not how you treat beloved characters. You're supposed to give them, of course, important roles, and then be well written and portrayed respectfully, but no, the sequel fails at that. The first two films didn't do that with their characters. They treated them how they should have been treated, respectfully and well written, whereas this film, no. And not to mention, the film even barely feels like a horror film. It literally feels like a really boring sci-fi prison film. And that's not what the first two films were at all. The first film was a pure horror masterpiece. And the sequel, in my opinion, is one of the best action films I've ever made. And in my opinion, one of the best sequels of all time. But this sequel, trash, in my opinion. Like, I have no idea what they were thinking writing this film, and I feel so bad for David Fincher who directed it, but thankfully since this film, he's made way better films since then, thankfully. I'm so glad that, he's been able to, move on from this film and make much better films since then. But that sadly wasn't the end of the troubles for a franchise, because 5 years later, we then also got another bad film, which was Alien Resurrection, which I also hate, but not as much as Alien 3 though, and that's because for all the thing I liked about this fourth film, when it comes to a new character introduced, was Ron Perlman as the character Ron Joyner. He was probably, for me, the only highlight of this film, but other than that, the film sucked. Like, it was boring, stupid, and it introduced lots of unlikable characters, especially the character played by Winona Ryder, because her character was just so insufferable in my opinion. Probably one of the worst characters in the entire franchise, in my opinion. Thankfully, Winona Ryder's been in much better films than this, which is definitely a big relief for me, because she's a great actress, and her talent really was wasted in this trash sequel. Then, however, despite, of course, this being the end of the main 4 films, the franchise then, of course, continued via crossover form with another sci-fi horror villain being the Predator. And unfortunately, in the 2 films, the alien character was even more screwed over, because I absolutely hated both of the films. The first Alien vs Predator film was not good in my opinion, because what's so dumb about it is, compared to the first 2 films, which are full of blood and gore and like lots of horror, just what you need, Alien vs Predator had a stupid rating in America of PG-13, which was a really dumb move, because the alien character and also Predator are not the children. So making the film PG-13 was a really bad move. And not to mention, and as well, the film was just so boring with insufferable characters. Yeah, the film sucked, but it was nowhere near as bad as the next one, being Alien vs Predator Requiem, which is probably, for me, one of those examples of a film which probably has the worst lighting ever. Like, the film is dark, but I say dark because you can't see a thing. Like, it's just so terrible, and it was made with a really low budget, which is why the lighting is so dark. And the film story is trash as well. Like, it completely botches up a lot even more, to a point where it's just laughable. It's an absolute joke, with once again subtle characters. Like, why is it that the first 2 films have a way better character being Ripley than, of course, these crossover films, and of course the 2 sequels to Aliens? Like, that's just an absolute joke in my opinion. Like, a really dumb move right there. But, however, despite these terrible crossovers happening, this wasn't the end of the franchise for Aliens, because we then got 2 prequels, directed, of course, once again by Sir Ridley Scott, came out to direct both of them, and this was Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Now, when I was younger, I did somewhat enjoy these 2 films, but unfortunately, in rewatches, I've noticed problems with these films, and it's mainly because of the characters. The characters in these 2 films are so dumb. Like, when you compare them to Ripley and her crew in the first movie, and also Hicks and Newt introducing aliens, and every other character introducing aliens for that matter, the characters in these 2 films are so stupid. They make the dumbest decisions ever, which gets them killed or put in danger. It's just a joke at this point. Because honestly, the only character I like in the 2 films is Michael Fassbender's character, David the android, and also Walter in Alien Covenant, because he plays, 2 characters. Like, he was probably the only redeeming quality when it comes to the characters introducing Prometheus, in my opinion. And the only character I liked out of the crew introducing Covenant was probably Tennessee played by Danny McBride, and that's probably about it, really. Alongside Michael Fassbender, that is, when it comes to others in the film. But other than that, Prometheus and Alien Covenant are just stupid films, and they're part of the reason why, in my opinion, Ridley Scott has lost his touch as a director. When you compare these 2 films to his older films, he definitely has, in my opinion, lost his touch, and that's why I'm not interested in watching any more of his films at all. Absolutely not. However, though, despite these 2 prequels happening, we did also, as well, get the confirmation of another main installment of the franchise, which is actually coming out later this year in August, which is a film called Alien Romulus. But because the 2 prequels pretty much come interest in the franchise, I have no interest whatsoever in watching this film. No. And based on what I've heard about from the trailers, it looks like it's going to be trash anyway, so it looks like I'm dodging a bullet. Not to mention, I've also heard that apparently Ridley Scott and James Cameron have already seen the film, and they apparently love it. But just because they love it doesn't mean I'm going to love it too. Because, for one thing, I've lost trust in Ridley Scott to make good films, and also I've lost respect for James Cameron as well. So, yeah, that's all I can say, really, when it comes to that. Like, just because they love it doesn't mean I'm going to love it too. If I was to say it, I'm probably going to hate it. I mean, because let's face it, all James Cameron cares about is his Avatar sequels, and I'm not a fan of that franchise at all, so yeah, exactly. And of course, Ridley Scott is making a Gladiator sequel nobody asked for, so yeah, tells me all I need to know about this film. It's probably going to be really bad for all I know. Maybe even worse than Alien 3, who knows. But I'm not going to find out how bad it is because I'm not going to watch it. I'll happily stick to the actually good Alien films, being, of course, the first two films, that is. And when it comes, of course, other parts of a franchise, I will also happily play Alien video games over watching the bad films. For example, I absolutely love the game Alien vs Predator, which is on PS3 and Xbox 360. Great game in my opinion. It's also really sad how that game's much better than the two crossover films. It's just so sad in my opinion. And I've also as well dabbled in the game Alien Fireteam Elite as well. Not the best game ever. I'm not saying it's the best game of all time, but it's definitely better than the Alien sequels, that's for sure. So, yeah, I'll stick to the good films and the good games for Alien franchise. But if you guys ask what for me is the best Alien game, it's most definitely for me Alien Isolation. Absolute masterpiece of a video game. I like to put it in like a trilogy with first two films, where you got, first two films and that game, and you got a perfect trilogy right there. That's how it goes for me, really. So, I'll stick to the good Alien content. Screw, of course, what we're getting today. That's what I'll say. So, guys, this is me doing the next episode of Old Better Than New, while saying why, in my opinion, the Alien franchise is better in the old than the new. So, you know the drill, guys. Be sure to give this video a like. Also, be sure to put in the comments what you guys think of the Alien franchise, think Old Better Than New. Let me think in the comments below. Also, be sure to join the team by pressing subscribe for the coming future, and I'll see you all later.